Mm. So I'd love to invite us all, whether you are here with me live right now or tuning into the replay, to drop into a meditative state. Perhaps close your eyes if that's available to you right now. Relax your body and invite your presence into your body. Ground it into this now moment through your breath. Allow yourself to be and become present and available for this transmission, knowing that so much more is being communicated than just the words that are shared. There will be energetic transmissions offered, and by you showing up for this workshop, by you being here right now listening to this replay, you are sharing your prayer, your request, your intention with life around the cultivation of your spiritual gifts and the sharing of your spiritual gifts in benefit to all. And perhaps in this moment, allow yourself to really breathe into the importance, the significance of you cultivating and sharing your spiritual gifts. Allow yourself to receive how important it is to you. Oftentimes, when we feel blocked, when we feel stuck or stagnant around something that we want to do, it's because it is so important to us. It is so meaningful to us. On a soul level, you know and understand the uniqueness of you. You know and understand that you have this divine design to you that is so incredibly valuable, precious, perfect, and you want to share it with the world to benefit, to serve all. And you want to know, realize, experience what it's like to become, to share more of you. We know ourselves by creating ourselves. We know and experience our potential by living into it. And it's the ultimate fulfillment for us as human beings to know that we have these sacred, precious, divine gifts and to share them with the world. To be and become all that we are, all that we can be. To allow ourselves to be seen, to create, to have an impact, to love, to support, to shine. You have the calling for a reason. You are who you are. You are how you are. You have the dreams that you have for a reason. Invitation to receive the divine perfection inherent with who and how you are, inherent within where you are currently at in the cultivation and the sharing of your spiritual gifts, and in your dreams, in your desires, and what you feel your calling is. Knowing, trusting that where you are right now is where you are meant to be. And that this is the absolute best place you could be. So if you've had any resistance to where you're at or judgment of where you're at, believing that you should be somehow further ahead or somewhere else, consciously putting that to rest now. We cannot rush our evolution. We cannot rush our growth, but we can reclaim our energy and our power from any resistance to what is or what has been, and ground it into the present moment. The present moment is our portal to our creativity. The present moment is always the portal to taking a quantum leap, to changing direction, to cultivating a new habit. Only in the present do we have choice. And if we're ruminating about the past or worrying about the future, the energy necessary to choose is not available to us here and now. So this is why this foundation of acceptance of where you're presently at in the cultivation of your spiritual gifts and the sharing of them is so important. This acceptance of where you're at and this ability to perceive and receive the value of where you're at, the value of your gifts exactly as you are, right here and right now. Hmm. So that's going to be the foundation for our call today so that we can be so available to receive the possibility of what's to come. It's really important to release the resistance that we have, any judgment that we may have around where we're currently at. The more that we're able to see the preciousness, the value, the perfection of where we're at and truly accept it, embrace it, the more empowered we're going to be to move forward. And if you feel the calling, if you have the dream, if you have the desire, that's by divine design. And whatever your challenges may be, whatever your perceived limitations or flaws may be, that is also by divine design. And we do not need to eradicate these flaws or heal ourselves or be any better than we are in order to share. We share with all that we are. Embracing that we're sharing our spiritual gifts as humans, with all of our humanness. And our humanness is inherently limited. I'd love to welcome everybody who has joined us since we began. Aw. I'm just looking at all of you right now. I welcome your questions at any point. You can raise your hand or you can submit them in the chat box. But otherwise, I'm just going to speak stream of consciousness with the intention to speak directly to this group before me and to anybody who's tuning into the replay. Knowing that even if you're turning into the replay, you're here with us now. Your energy is here with us now because energy does not know time and space. Okay, so what I'm feeling called to speak to start off is about spiritual perfectionism. There can be a tendency when it comes to sharing our spiritual gifts to want to share them with the same divine perfection with which we experience and receive them. Yet, because we are in these human bodies, and because we are transmitting everything through our human mind, everything that we share is going to be inherently limited to some degree. We cannot share the ultimate highest perspective. We cannot share the perspective of God. We can only share what's coming through us. And we get to trust that it's coming through us for a reason. And we get to trust that it has value. That we are the way we are for a reason. We are the way we are by divine design. And what comes through us is a gift from God. It is a gift from divinity that is meant to be shared. And there can be a tendency of believing, oh, I need to be better. I need to heal more. I need to heal this thing and this challenge or this flaw before I can show up and share, before I can truly be a leader, before I can be a teacher. Yet nobody is perfect. And it can actually be there's so much value to us showing up in our humanness. It's like embracing the paradox of our humanness with our divinity, of the limitation of our perspective with our capacity to connect with and channel divinity. And when we can work with that duality, really embrace that duality and speak from that place, that's like the source of our power versus believing I need to be perfect first. I need to be more healed first. Interestingly, oftentimes sharing is what heals us. Everything that is coming through us is ultimately for us. And in my personal experience, I feel like I've received it most potently when I share it. And sometimes we believe that we have to know exactly what it is that we are going to share before we share it. To give a personal example, the creation of this 3-part series. I didn't know what I was going to share. I still don't know what I'm going to share. But I just had a feeling that I had a lot to share around this because it's been such a challenge for me. It's been one of my life's biggest challenges, the actual sharing of my spiritual gifts, the actual speaking and expressing of what is coming through me. Yet once you're in this space, something always comes through. And if you have the intention, like my intention is to serve, my intention is to empower you, my intention is to love, whatever your intention may be, As soon as you create the context, like you create the container, this is my intention, something always comes through. Yet if we're in these places of wanting to control or wanting to know or wanting to make sure, then we stifle what is naturally wanting to come through. Part of the sharing of our spiritual gifts is that we also have to make peace with all of our fears. The fear of, well, what if nothing comes through? What if I'm judged? What if I'm criticized? What if I say something that is wrong, that isn't correct? Whatever the fear may be, we've got to make peace with this being a possibility. Like whatever we fear may happen, and it's okay. It's okay. No matter what happens, it's like I've got my own back, and I'm not expecting perfectionism because I am human, because I am learning, because I am growing. I feel like the most impactful leaders and guides and teachers are those that are very realistic around where they're at and do not hold themselves above their audience, above their clients, but recognize that we're all on the same playing field. We're all human. We're all growing. We're all evolving. And everybody is both our teacher and our student. So we are both a teacher and a student. And when we're comfortable being both a teacher and a student, then we can release any expectation of us being perfect, of us having all of the answers, of us having the solution. Because that's not true. Like even our greatest spiritual teachers, they're still learning. They're still growing. That's the nature of reality. It's if you look at the Big Bang, it's just eternal, infinite expansion, becoming more and more of us. And that's always what we're going to be in. So we're always going to be in a growth process. We're always going to be in a healing process. Yet that doesn't mean what is coming through for us now isn't valuable for someone. I'm just reading the direct messages that I'm receiving. Yeah, like one message I got is around fears. And for me, something that I wanted to do was eradicate my fears before I moved forward. Okay, like I will do this once I don't feel afraid. And I thought that my fear was divinely designed resistance. That's what I thought. Like, oh, I need to honor my fear. If I feel this fear, if I feel this emotion, that's because it's not right for me. It's because I shouldn't be sharing. It's because I'm not ready. But what I've noticed is that fear never goes away until you actually share. And we don't lose our fear of judgment, of being criticized, of saying something silly, of making a fool of ourselves, of like whatever the fear is, of like offering a message that isn't relevant to someone, of not knowing what to do in a situation. Whatever your fear may be, that fear does not begin to dissipate until we actually live the experience of the fear manifesting and recognizing, oh, this isn't so bad. So we don't have to eradicate our imperfection or eradicate our fear before we share. We walk forward with our fear. We walk forward with our imperfections, with all of our flaws, all of it. Trusting that it is all by divine design. And sometimes that's the most impactful place to share from all of our humanness, because we will never transcend all of our humanity. While we're in these bodies, we will always be human. So permission to bring it with you, whatever excuse you have for not moving forward, bring it with you. It's okay. Thank you for being a permission slip for us and encouraging movement. As you're speaking, I can feel my impasse and blocked energy, seeing a pathway into a dense forest I had previously been viewing as a roadblock. Yes. Yeah, our blocks are, we can always work with our blocks. So our blocks are not invitations to be blocked. Our blocks are actually invitations to explore what is the block. A big part of the block that I had personally around sharing my spiritual gifts was how important this was to me. This work means so much to me. It is so, so, so important to me. And I feel like the more that we care about something, the more we can become attached to an outcome. And that can then manifest as a block because we're afraid. What if that outcome doesn't manifest? What if it's something completely different? So for me, one of my blocks was really coming to peace with and coming to terms with all the outcomes that I did not prefer. Like, for example, what if you host something and no one shows up or only one person shows up? The reality of that is pretty incredible. Like, if you have a one-on-one with someone, all that love, all that like attention streaming into that person, it's amazing. And say you have like another fear that I had was, what if I don't have the answers? I'm channeling when I do my one-on-ones, when I do my group Akashic record readings, I'm channeling. So what if someone asks something and I don't have the answer? That's another fear. But then the lived reality of it is like, oh, this is an incredible opportunity to actually explore with the person before me the answer or the solution as it moves through them. Because the reason I don't have the answer is because it's not meant to come through me. Or another fear, what if I schedule something and I put it out there and then when the day comes, I feel terrible. Like I just feel like an emotional wreck or physically I feel sick. Well, that has happened. And the reality has been that when you are in these really raw emotional states, like a different kind of wisdom comes through. And because everything is by divine design, the people that came to that transmission were so served by me crying, by me being in this raw emotional state, by the things that I said, by me focusing perhaps more on the challenges of life instead of offering a more hopeful, optimistic transmission. Like everything is relevant, everything is valuable. We don't have to be speaking as like, this perfect divine channel. And it can be so healing for people to see us in different states. And I feel like a big block for people is they believe they need to be like clear. Everyone has the experience of where they feel clear, where they feel in their power, where they feel confident, where it's like, that you're tapped in, you're seeing things from a higher perspective, you're like in flow in your life. And then like, now I can share. The more that we can make our sharing unconditional and allow for ourselves to share in all of our states, this actually cultivates more self-love and self-acceptance, not only for ourselves, but for other people, because then they can see us showing up in our humanness, showing up in our other states that perhaps don't feel like flow, don't feel like clarity, don't feel like whatever it may be, and still being able to bring forth something that is valuable. So permission in this moment to release any limitations that we've created around our sharing. I need to be in this certain state. It needs to sound this certain way. It needs to have this certain tone. And instead dropping into what feels real, what feels true, what is alive for me right now. And that can be incredibly impactful in reading your messages. Yeah, accepting you for you allows us to probably accept us when in fear. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I see iPhone has raised your hand. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Hi, Daniela. My name is Courtney.
Hey, Courtney.
Hi, I'm trying to embody what it is that you're transmitting to us right now by raising my hand. And, something that's coming up for me is just how the thoughts that we assign to fear or blockages or impasse or whatever resistance we might be having, it changes the whole entire way we interact with a thing, just as you were describing. And we can lean into these things and they can sort of unlock different gems, and we can get to the meaning behind those blockages or that fear that is a part of, I think, getting to where I'm ultimately going.
Yeah, so true. And our like facing our fears can really be a very fast, quick, easy, direct access to our power. Because it's our fear that we can occasionally use as an excuse to stop us. And we give our fear more power. Yet when we start to move forward with our fear, then our fear no longer has power. And we're empowered to move forward regardless of fear, because the fear will always be there. And the fear, it never goes away when we are continuously growing and expanding beyond our comfort zone. So the fear initially might be sharing with one person, and then we get really comfortable there. But as we continue growing, now the fear is sharing in front of 30 people. And then we get really comfortable there. And now the fear becomes like it's always there. And I know that for me personally, I had a lot of judgment around my process and how slowly it felt like I was moving forward in the sharing of my gifts. But upon reflection, I recognized that I needed to heal my nervous system. It's like, how much fear can we handle, and how much do we even want to handle? So for me, it was a period of time where I had to heal my nervous system so that I could show up in the face of fear versus having fear just totally like derail me. So for anybody who's healing the levels of trauma that I was healing, that can be a really big part of our path when we're pushing forward the healing of our nervous system so that we can hold stress, so that we can hold fear, so that we can interpret it as excitement and allow it to give us energy, to be fuel for us showing up versus like this contraction and like collapsing in on ourselves. Something else that I found really supportive in the sharing of my spiritual gifts is the creation of a context for my life, like having an intention. What is the context? Because we all have different aspects of us, we all have different parts of us. And when we've created a solid context, like a solid intention, my intention is love, my intention is to serve, then it becomes a lot easier to not feed or compound the other parts of us that we don't want to be feeding or compounding. An example is when we have a very clear context for our life, like I'll speak to me personally, my context is love and service, giving my gifts and receiving all the gifts that life has for me, empowerment. Like that's the context. So when other thoughts, emotions, feelings arise, like if I just wake up one morning and I feel like miserable, like, bleh, right? But here's my context. Here's how I'm feeling. If I didn't have the context and I wasn't clear in that context, then I may start to behave in ways that fuel the misery feeling. I may start to behave according to what the misery feeling is suggesting to me, where I start to compound that feeling. I start to think thoughts that compounds that feeling. I might start moving through my day in a way that compounds the misery. Yet once you have the context, you then begin to serve the parts of you that arise. So if your context is the love and service and the fear arises, then instead of being stopped by the fear, instead of the fear manifesting as like, oh, now I can't do it, you have a direction that you know that you're heading in. And you can walk in that direction with all aspects of yourself, because we all have different parts of us. We're not just empowered, clear teachers and guides. We have our human aspects as well. We're always going to have doubts. There's always going to be a voice of not good enough. And the thing about the voice that suggests like maybe I'm not good enough yet is that as we listen to that voice and don't show up when we hear that voice, we actually compound that belief. When we have the belief and we show up anyway, then we begin to give less power to that belief. I'm curious to hear what your questions are around sharing your spiritual gifts. And like what your challenges have been.
I'll speak to that.
Yeah.
Hi, it's so good to see you.
Hey.
So where I am right now, I was giving free sessions and then I started charging for sessions. Can you believe it? Accepting money for sessions, which is a huge step. And I've gotten to the point of raising my prices, but what I find is the moment I'm in session and the moment I'm in channeling mode, it feels wonderful. It's everything else around it that I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to do it. And I feel like my social media is flooded with all of the ways that people are doing it. And all of that just feels like such a turnoff to me. And I'm allowing that to be okay. And I do feel what you said really spoke to me in this. I do feel like I'm in a period of integration where I'm allowing my nervous system to regulate. And I keep reminding myself that this is a lifelong process and this is a nurturing of a lifelong gift. So, but then there's a piece of me that feels a little bit scared, like, but am I just procrastinating? Am I just putting off? Am I just not doing the thing? So that's where I am.
Thank you for your question, Jessica. Maybe let me know, what exactly would you like to explore around this?
Maybe this resistance of, I feel like there's this new way birthing of how to monetize and be able to do this in a successful manner where you can succeed financially in a much more, it's like there's in a much simpler way. And maybe I'm just putting a bunch of narratives. Like I see the people who are successful and it seems as though everybody just does it through social media, and you have to have a team and you have to have things automated and you have to have an email list and you have to do all of these things that just sound exhausting to me. And I know that's a narrative and I'm sure that's not how everyone is doing it, but I'm curious if you can speak to other ways of doing it or how you did that, or or possibly how you see that going, because it feels like something new is being birthed. It feels like we're all getting a little tired of that, and maybe that's just me projecting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Thank you. So there are an infinite number of ways to do things, and we never have to do anything that we don't want to do. It can be valuable to become aware of how deep the conditioning is around believing that we need to do things that we don't want to do. Like, as children, we have to go to school and we have to do our homework and we have to get a job to then provide for ourselves, to have a home and to have food and just to have our needs met. That conditioning runs deep, and we can bring it into the sharing of our spiritual gifts, but know that it's not inherently true. The reality of this experience is infinite possibility. And I personally barely use social media. All my clients at first, I did not have a website or social media accounts before I had a full client schedule. Like, I had a full client schedule before I created a website, and it all happened through word of mouth. And my focus, my obsession at that time was simply in sharing, becoming the best Akashic practitioner that I could be, and sharing with all of my love, showing up with all of my love. Having really positive intention for people, holding people, caring about people. It's something that can't be faked. People can feel it when you care. People can feel it when you love them, when you want to support them, when you're doing it to support them. That is felt, that is experienced, that is incredibly magnetic, because so many people are looking for that. So they will naturally find their way to you and connect with you. If social media doesn't feel natural, that's okay. Everybody has unique ways of working. And some of us are designed for social media, for the internet, and some of us are not. There are some incredibly masterful teachers in the world that would never put their teachings on the internet, because they understand that in order for them to show up in integrity, they need to be speaking directly to the people before them, because everybody needs the way that I think of it is everybody needs a different prescription, so to speak. When we're sharing, like when we're wanting to share in integrity and have a certain specific impact, the message is very unique from person to person to person and what they need. So some teachers would never put themselves on the internet. They're like, no, my teaching is for the person before me. It's not for the whole world. It's for the group before me. It's not for the whole world. So if that's the way that you're feeling called to move forward, you can trust that. And there is a magic to energy. Energy does not know limits. And in order to receive, in order to receive clients, I feel like what's most important is we cultivate the energy of giving, of sharing, of I care, of I love, of I am available for you. And that is naturally going to draw in the people that would most be served by the receiving of that. It's energy. And sometimes I feel like we can get caught up in this feeling of like, I want clients, I want to have the clients, I want to have the audience, I want money, I want to make this amount of money per month. And that's an energy where when people feel it, they're a little bit repulsed by it. It's like, well, no, like, where do I fit in that? Yet if the focus is how can I serve you? How can I love you? How can I share with you? That draws in a different energy, which makes us magnetic. And then we're meeting clients randomly. Like, we're standing out in line in the grocery store and the person in front of us is like, what do you do? Oh, I think I need some of that. And then they like recommend you to everybody. It doesn't need to happen any one way. And it really is an energetic game. So the more that we start to cultivate that energy of I have a gift to share, and I'm so excited to share it with you, for you, for you, for you. People are drawn to that. That is magnetic. Oh, this person is here to share with me. And then the other part of that is recognizing the value of what it is that we are sharing and being so open to receive. And that's when we open ourselves up to the creation of this flow of abundance, like of the giving, of the generosity of the giving, and the opening to receive what is available for us through our giving, through the financial exchange of we give a gift and then we receive. I feel like there's a lot of conditioning around the giving of our spiritual gifts where people believe it should be given for free. Like there's like an expectant energy to it. And sometimes people believe, oh, if someone can't afford the gift, then you should give it to them. Yet I feel like that is a continuation of perpetuating victim consciousness. Believing this person can't afford my offering, so now I need to give it to them for free because poor them, they're a victim. Do you guys see that? Does that make sense to you? But our role as teachers, as practitioners, as guides, as leaders is to hold people in their power. And if we're really holding people to their power, then we're not going to enable these limiting beliefs about themselves. People don't need, they're not, it's like the experience of charity. It's not totally aligned with the route of empowerment. And of course, there are different circumstances. Like I shared this in my training where anytime someone asks for a discount or asks for something for free, I usually tune in first. And the answer is almost always no. I was living in LA and it was always like, no, this person needs to be empowered, to recognize, like to be held in the light of, you've got this, you have gifts to share. And in the giving of those gifts, you are able to receive financially because you are worth it. And holding people in that light is actually tremendously healing for them and empowering for them. But every once in a while, I would receive to give my gifts for free. And a really big example of that was when I was living in Tulum in Mexico. And I was working really intensely with this woman she had many kids and she was trying to leave her marriage, which was abusive. And of course, when I tuned in around that, it was like, no, absolutely not. Don't charge her a penny. Why? Because the next step in her empowerment was not to come up with the money to pay me. That wasn't even relevant in her situation. And she was so appreciative and able to receive what I was giving without, like, there wasn't the energy of expectation. And there wasn't in me giving it for free, I wasn't feeding any ideas of I'm a victim. It was actually supporting her in rising into her power. So in that instance, it was completely aligned and it would not have been aligned for me to charge. It's helpful in the sharing of our spiritual gifts to make peace with money. Money is a form of love. Money is energy. When we spend money, people often feel like, oh, now I have, I spent $2,000, now I have $2,000 less. But that money is going towards another human being and it is supporting them in their life. It is supporting them and providing for themselves and providing for their family. It's energy being given to another human being and it's communicating, I value your gifts and I value what it is that you're offering. Thank you. And then when we receive money, we do so by providing a service to someone else, by giving something of value. So when you orient yourself to money in this way, we begin to trust it more and we open ourselves up to receiving and we don't feel guilty for charging. It's like release that idea that other people are victims, that they need our gifts. People will be fine without our gifts. They don't need us. We don't want to feed that savior victim type of mentality of like, oh, we are the savior. We need to come in and save people. That's actually not an empowering place to be coming from for that other person, because then we keep them in the role of needing help. But really, ultimately, we come in to offer the reflection of you don't need to be saved. You are your own internal savior. And I'm here to provide that mirror. I am not the power in your life that has you rise out of this problem or rise out of that problem. I'm here to reflect to you the power that you have to lift yourself up. There's no shame in charging. And charging actually serves others. We're not taking from them when we charge. We are receiving and we're offering them the opportunity to give, to show up. In some ways, giving money is the giving of our spiritual gifts, because everything is ultimately a spiritual gift. Everything is spiritual. And someone else giving us money and showing up in that way, it brings them into, it's like an energy that I see that cycles around. And we can't be in the energy of receiving if we're not in the energy of giving. They tend to balance one another out. There are many ways to receive in the sharing of our gifts, which fuel us. And this is important because if we're not receiving, we're going to end up depleted. And that's something, and ultimately, whatever we do, we want it to energize us. It's for us. It's got to be for us, otherwise it's going to be depleting us. So one way in which we can practice receiving beyond simply receiving money is like really honoring what we have given and the impact that it has. Like taking time to appreciate how what we have shared has had impact. And that fuels us in the giving more. When we see the impact that it's had and we take it in, like we take a moment to be like, oh, wow, I showed up in this way. I served in this way. And this is the impact that it had on someone else's life. Breathing that in, that inspires, that like fuels, that gives us energy. So there are many ways to receive. And the more that we receive, the more energy and the more fuel that we have to give. Charging, receiving money can be a really big part of that. I'm returning to Jessica's question. I'm tuning into it again and seeing if there's more to it. And what I'm hearing is we never have to do anything that we don't want to do. And there's a magic to moving forward in the ways that we are naturally inspired to. It helps us break through our limiting beliefs. The collective human mind tends to believe this is how you have to do it. Like this is how it's done. But there's no one way of getting things done, of achieving things. So helpful to bring our eyes, like not focusing on how others are doing it or into comparison, and instead bringing our eyes into what is possible. That's the place to be in that is really inspiring, into what is possible versus looking at what has already been done. I would love to invite all of you to get clear on and write this out after this call. What is it that you want to be doing? And how do you want to do it? You don't have to exhaust yourself. You don't have to deplete yourself. You don't have to hire a whole team right now if that's not what feels inspiring. You don't have to share on social media. You can do whatever you want. What do you want to do it? And how do you want to do it? And what would you love to, for example, achieve? And in what way would you like to achieve it? It can be anything. You can say, I would love to be hosting a workshop and I would love to have 20 people in my workshop. And I would love for people to hear about this workshop word of mouth, for all my present day clients to be sharing this message with everybody. And that's how I receive everyone, because I don't feel like sharing it on social media. And that's okay. We can do it that way. And we can also lean into what we don't feel like doing and explore whether it is a resistance rooted in limitation or whether it's our alignment. knowing that it's never one or the other. It's often, just somewhere on the spectrum. But does it feel more like a resistance or more like alignment? Like when I first started sharing my gifts, I really felt like showing up on social media. At first, I had a resistance to it that felt aligned because I wasn't ready to hold all that energy. I mean, if somebody criticized me or said something mean about me, I would have been like, ow, like that really hurts. But now I'm in a place where I'm more comfortable being judged. I'm more comfortable being criticized. It doesn't derail me. So now the sharing on social media feels more like a resistance that perhaps is not aligned. So those things, they shift and change in time, and we don't have to do anything that we're not ready for. I feel like it can be supportive to reframe marketing or promoting, not as something that we have to do, but more like not calling it marketing or even self-promotion, maybe calling it expression, expressing yourself, revealing more of yourself, allowing more of yourself to be seen, and approaching it in that way. Knowing that you don't need to market, you don't need to promote, you need to just be who you are and let people see you so that those who are resonant with you can come to you. And they can find you and they can receive from you. Just reading your messages. Thank you, Carmen. Wow. Yeah, one message, just simply paying attention to the impact I've already made, brought tears to my eyes. Wow. A big barrier to sharing our gifts is not recognizing the value of them. Like, to share about my personal experience with this is, so right now I'm sharing with you all of my thoughts. That's it. I'm just sharing with you my thoughts. And because my thoughts are my thoughts, I've always just thought that they were just ordinary. Like they're just thoughts that I'm having, like everybody has thoughts. And I didn't recognize that, oh, these thoughts when shared have value because I'm having thoughts that other people haven't thought. And once I share with them my perspective, my thoughts, that actually can expand their perspective. So we tend to have a tendency to underestimate the value of our presence, of what it is that we bring, of our unique perspectives, because we just think, well, that's just how I am. Yet you really won't know the value of who you are and what you bring until you share it and until you're willing to receive that reflection of other people sharing with you, oh, this is what I received. And even then, our sharing doesn't need to be dependent upon how other people receive it. It feels good to share. And oftentimes, once we begin sharing, it opens up to the sharing of more. So sometimes the cultivation of our spiritual gifts requires us to be in action. That's how we improve. That's how we open up the channels to receive and to actually have something of value to share. All that I was going to say here today came from simply creating a place where it could be shared, but it didn't come from me knowing first what I was going to share. You don't have to know first. You can simply share. Like create a space to share and see what comes through and trust that something will come through. And sometimes what's coming through is not even, it doesn't even have to be yours. It's like you can tune into the people before you and you can feel what messages are relevant for them. And then you share that. And it may not even be a thought that you've thought before or anything that is really familiar to you. Now look at the chat. So this message, sometimes it feels really scary to let yourself be seen. I'm still very nervous about attracting negative attention by sharing a perspective that people might not understand. In this this experience of life, there's duality. So inevitably, there are going to be people who understand us and people who don't understand us. And inevitably, when there's attention, there's going to be positive attention and there's going to be negative attention. And we tend to judge negative attention as something that is bad or wrong or that we can't handle. We fear it because we believe we can't handle it. We fear it because we believe that it's going to hurt us. But as we embrace it and accept it as not only a possibility, but a likelihood, then we become equipped to handle it in a way where if we do receive negative attention, if we are misunderstood, projected onto, it's okay. It's okay. Maybe that's a part of our service. What we share doesn't have to be just feel-good messages that make other people feel good that they agree with. There's so many different walks of life here on the planet. It's inevitable that people are going to disagree. That maybe we're going to share something to someone who's having a bad day that has a lot of pent-up anger and it's going to be thrown at us. But it only reaches us when we make it mean something about us. So as we know ourselves and know the truth of ourselves, like, oh, my intention in sharing this is love, then it doesn't matter if people misconstrue our intention, if they say mean things. We don't get to control how our message is received, but we do get to continuously purify the place from which our message arises. And as we embrace this as a possibility, then if it actually does happen, we're not seeing it as, oh, I've done something wrong. Something has gone wrong. This is bad. It becomes simply the nature of life. It's like when you have a relationship with someone. If we believe that it's got to be all love, all peace, all feel good, all harmony, and then there's a moment of frustration, of anger, of rupture, then we may judge like, oh, this is bad, something has gone wrong, and make it a lot bigger than what it is. Yet these things are inevitable in relationship. It's inevitable. There's going to be a time when this is going to come up. And when we are knowing that this is the nature of relationship, long-term intimate relationship, then when it actually does happen, we can work with it. And we don't think, oh, the relationship is broken. This is bad. Oh, this relationship is toxic, because suddenly there's like a moment of anger arising or frustration arising. We experience it as an opportunity to return to repair. And then we become equipped to repair it because we're not compounding what's happening with more judgment. We're recognizing the dual nature. Those that we love most, we're going to have moments where maybe we feel like we just hate them, but it doesn't mean we don't love them. And it doesn't take away from the love. Expecting that duality will help us in the sharing of our gifts, because when we're working with an audience, all it is like a series of one-to-one relationships. It's not like we just have this unique relationship with an audience. It's our relationship with one person and then another person and then another person. Does that make sense? And those relationships, they have a nature to them that is similar to, what we experience in relationship, where we are misunderstood at times. So we will be misunderstood. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much. This helps me shift the way I think about this, right? Life-changing way to think about this. I feel lighter when thinking of sharing. Thank you. Yeah, we're not here to share and avoid the negative attention or negative whatever. We're just here to share in full honor of the nature of life and its inherent duality. Okay, I'm going to answer this question from Mayu. How did you make a shift from when you felt criticized from others and felt attacked but now you don't care anymore. What practice did you take? A few things. One thing that really helped me was giving up striving to be perfect or striving to be a good person or a nice person or a spiritual person, and instead embracing myself as the full spectrum of everything, full spectrum of light and dark. That way, if someone comes forward and points out to me my shadow, points out to me my limitation, it doesn't feel as triggering for me because I'm not trying to defend that I'm a person that is light, that I'm a person that's perfect, that I'm a person that's nice, that I'm a person that's pure. So now when people bring forward like, oh, I'm seeing this, it doesn't trigger me in the same way. Another part of that is also embracing my imperfection. So if someone criticizes me, something that I do, it becomes more of a reason to celebrate my imperfection and celebrate the fact that I chose to share anyway, considering I let perfectionism impede me from sharing for years. So now when there's a criticism, it feels like, oh, this is occurring because I shared before I was perfect. And this criticism is actually supporting me in improving, in becoming better, in growing. And it was necessary for me to share and then receive this criticism, receive this feedback in order to grow. I wouldn't have known if I had shared and then received this. So sometimes we have to be in action and we need to be sharing in order to receive the reflections that help us grow. It also helps not to take it personally, to recognize that, like, just to give a personal example, like a random comment on Instagram could be like, oh, like, she is so dark. I can't believe you guys are falling for this, or something like that. Recognizing that that is someone else's experience of me and not a clear reflection of me. Nobody can ever offer you a clear, like a perfectly clear reflection. Only God can do that. Everybody's reflection of you is going to be distorted to some degree. And we will never transcend that. So when people offer you reflections, know that it's got hints of distortion. Sometimes it feels grossly distorted and it feels like all projection, and sometimes just a little bit. But when we know that, that can be really, really supportive in showing up. Hold on 1 second. I'm getting distracted by my roommate. She's making a lot of noise right now. Yeah, so when we know that, we're okay with being criticized or being judged or people hating us. That's where humanity is at right now. We've undergone so many traumas at the hands of one another, and we haven't yet healed. Like, we haven't healed from things that happened generations ago, from genocides, from wars, from murders. Like, it's all still there. We have so much relational pain. People have relational pain in, like, with their family, with their friends, and then they project it onto other relationships. They may not even know us, but they're still projecting that relational pain onto us. And we can't avoid that. Avoiding that will only lead to us hiding. So just knowing what we're working with and being realistic with it and being okay with it, like loving and accepting who and how we are. Like, we are this perfectly imperfect species. And that's another part that's really important to the sharing of our spiritual gifts. We've got to love humanity, because if we're judging humanity, if we're like if we have resentment towards humanity, if we're just like, oh, we're not going to want to serve humanity. Who is it that you want to serve the most? It's the people that you love, the people that you accept, the people that you feel close to. So sometimes we have to do a lot of relational healing before we really feel empowered to serve. And this relational healing can begin in our closest relationships, where we create safety in our closest relationships, where we make it okay for us to be who we are. We feel safe to express ourselves. We feel safe and intimacy. We feel safe in even conflict. When we cultivate that in our closest relationships, it then becomes a lot easier to do that with an audience. If we inherently don't feel safe in our closest relationships, we're probably not going to feel safe sharing with an audience, sharing on social media. So work on feeling safe in your relationships, and then you'll feel safer with an audience, with clients. Yeah. Mayu says, thank you so much. It helps me a lot. I'm like a people pleaser, so I will honor both reactions. Yes. Yeah, I'm not here to please you. I am here to serve you. That's like a motto for my sessions, because sometimes sessions can bring forth people, like what is presently in people's unconscious or subconscious. And sometimes people don't want to see that. And there may be like a reaction to seeing it initially, but then it's a tremendous act of love and service to reveal that. Hmm. Okay, I'm going to end here for today. I would love to invite you to part 3 of this series, which is on December 12th. And I'm going to have a seal join me, which I'm really excited about. He's an incredible channel. So he'll also be speaking from his human around the sharing of your spiritual gifts. Thank you, Stephanie, for your message. And if you are feeling called to dive deeper into these topics, know that I have a training called Akashic Metamorphosis. I am presently revamping it, adding to it. In the next iteration, it's going to be a 4-month training, which is going to include aspects around marketing yourself and around sharing yourself, how to hold an audience, how to move forward. In addition to the core of the training, which is cultivating your ability to access Akashic perspective and to channel and to develop your intuition. So if you're interested, I'd love to have you. It's on my website. The next round launches February 22nd, 2022. Yeah, and I love you all so much. Thank you for being present. I really appreciate you being here. And if you know anyone who might be served by this series, you're welcome to share with them the replays. I'm going to send them to you and also direct them to our final call, which will be on 12/12. Yeah, thank you, Jess. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, I love you guys. Happy Sunday.
Aloha.